Alright, as you can see on the meter here, you got a few settings. You have fan, common, and compressor. So on these, if you look on the top of these capacitors, you see it says fan, HERM, H-E-R-M, which stands for hermetic compressor, and C, which is common. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook up these wires. See, the red one is the compressor, and then the last one is going to be the fan. Now if we look on the rating plate on the front of it, it says 30 and 5, and then the plus means it can be 5% over. If you look on the meter now, on the fan side, you can see we have 4.24, and the other side we have 26.7. 26.7, I don't know. That would probably it's I would replace it because it's such a cheap item. I wouldn't mess around with it. But I'd like to see that be a little bit higher. So obviously it's not at 30, and the other one's not at 5. The 4.22 is close enough, but the one that should be at 30, a little bit low. I mean, it would be okay, but you know, for 30 bucks, I'd just put a new capacitor on there if you had somebody out doing it or whatever. So now, if you look at these capacitors, you say, well, so basically this capacitor is going to run the fan motor, and it's going to run the compressor. And sometimes you go out back and that air conditioner's not running, and it's because the fan motor is not spinning, or the compressor. You're making noises, but it's not doing anything. If you'll see this one is all flat on the very top. Now, one of the dead giveaways is, see how it's rounded on top there? That's because it exploded a little bit. As you can see in number 3 here too, that one's way exploded. And then you have, you can just see. But when you get to the other type, there is this flat. They should all be flat, just like this one right here. Okay. So we're going to move on to our next one, which is that's going to be our C. Now if we look at if we look over here, see how the fan is 4.28? So the fan will still run, which in this particular case, that was the deal. The fan ran, but the compressor wouldn't run. So the compressor side is bad, but the fan would still run. So that's where we're sitting at with that particular one. Even though that whole top piece looks bad, only part of it's bad. Now if it was completely bad, you would have this. Oops. And as you can see, there's hardly any rating at all. Now, one other thing is, they don't always have fan compressors. Sometimes when it comes to a regular capacitor, you'll see a lot of these type of capacitors. And again, it's got a rating of 5 UF. So basically you're going to you're going to hook one side up with the common, and then if I'm just looking at the rating here, see if you can see it rates up to 20, but this is only 5. So now we're hooked up, and if you look up there, we're at 3.51, so we're within range. And that is a good capacitor. And as you can see, it's not bubbled up over the top or anything like that. It's nice and flat. That's still a good capacitor. Now, two things you'll see on this one: 370 volt, but on this one you saw a 440 volt. You can go down. You can if your unit has a 440 volt, you do not want to go to a 370. You want to stay with a 440. So you want to make sure that you double check that before you replace it. And then the other thing you want to do is you always want to, before you start doing anything, and I did this before I turned the camera on, you always short across the terminals with a insulated screwdriver, so you make sure that there's no power in there, because it can hold power and you'll get a shock that will not feel very good. Luckily I've never gotten a shock. I've been burned and electrocuted, but I've never got a shock from one of those, because they do hold a lot of capacity. So, and basically that is how you test a capacitor. Little capacitor tester. Probably get it at Home Depot. This one's a little higher tech, but probably get one for probably 30-40 bucks. That basically is all we got for you on the capacitors.